Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I want to talk about something different, about some celebrity sightings of UFOs, particularly Elvis Presley had a lot of sightings throughout his life, apparently. He was very interested in extraterrestrials, UFOs. It was a big deal to him. John Lennon had a big sighting in 1974 when he was in New York. And also Muhammad Ali claimed to have seen UFOs many times. And I want to go through all of these celebrities. Now, of course, there's a lot of celebrities out there that, see UFOs. I mean, we know Tom DeLonge, of course, of Blink 182, a guitarist. He's very interested in it. He started that Stars Academy of the Arts and Sciences group. And he's pretty much devoted to trying to prove the existence of the reality behind UFOs and extraterrestrials. But there's a lot of people. I mean, a lot of different celebrities throughout the years have talked about UFOs. Some of the famous cases. Something I know one of them that I talked about in a podcast before was Jackie Gleason, the late comedian, who apparently in 1973, President Richard Nixon took him to some base in Florida. Gleason had a big interest in UFOs and extraterrestrials, read a lot of books on the subject, and apparently took him to a place in Florida, a base where they were keeping bodies on ice, alien bodies on ice, and it really shook Gleason up, at least according to his wife. After Gleason's death, his wife talked about this incident when Jackie Gleason had seen these alien bodies, and it really changed him. It really had an effect on him. But like a lot of people don't know that Elvis Presley himself, the king of rock and roll, had experiences with UFOs. Well, apparently numerous times throughout his life. And anyway, I'm going to talk about an article, different articles. We're going to go through an article here called the headline is Elvis Presley Believed in Extraterrestrials. And this was an NDTV. Of course, like always, I'll leave links to everything that I'm talking about here, everything I'm using. And anyway, the article says, King of rock and roll Elvis Presley reportedly believed in extraterrestrial beings all his life and also spotted a number of UFOs. According to reports, the Jailhouse Rock hitmaker is said to have seen several UFOs during his life, with his interest sparked by an unusual sighting made by his father, Vernon, on the day he was born, January 8th, 1935. His father told us he'd gone out to have a cigarette at 2 a.m. during the delivery, and when he looked up into the skies above their little shack, he saw the strangest blue light. He knew right then and there that something special was happening, said the singer's hairstylist and friend, Larry Geller. Author Michael C. Luckman, who wrote a book, Alien Rock, the Rock and Roll Extraterrestrial Connection, about musicians who have had contact with otherworldly beings, believes Presley was later visited by aliens when he was a child. He claims the singer was contacted telepathically by two alien beings when he was 8 years old, who gave him a glimpse into his famous future, although he had no idea what it all meant at the time. Let me just stop there for a second. That's very strange. Okay, now he's actually talking about meeting aliens, seeing aliens when he was 8 years old, who basically showed him the future. And the funny thing about Elvis, though, is that it wasn't just these weird... I mean, he had his father, basically on the night that Elvis was born, seeing a UFO in 1935, before people were talking about UFOs. That's strange enough. But throughout his life, he saw UFOs, and sometimes he had witnesses to go along with his sightings. Anyway, finishing up this article, says here, Geller, who eventually became Elvis's spiritual mentor, confirmed he had extraterrestrial experiences while he was with the singer. Recounting a time they had been driving through the desert and saw unusual lights, he said they were moving far too quickly to be airplanes, so he chalked it up to UFOs. So Geller, who worked for Elvis, was with Elvis one time in the desert, and they saw UFOs together. So that's just one incident. Now, there's a video, and this features Sonny West, who was a bodyguard to Elvis Presley. Now, after Elvis died, Sonny West would sometimes go on tour and meet people and talk about his experiences with Elvis, a lot of different things, and there was a video that they made from one of his when he met with an audience and he was talking about Elvis. It was Elvis up close and personal with Sonny West, and during a portion of that video, Sonny West talks about an incident where he was with Elvis at their home at Elvis's home in Beverly Hills in 1966. When Elvis pointed out a UFO to him, and West said it was one of the strangest things he ever saw. At first he thought it was an airplane, but the thing never made a sound. It was completely silent as it passed very close to Elvis's house in Beverly Hills at that time. Anyway, I'm going to play that clip right here.
He said, "Let's go outside." So we went out there, and we're talking and everything, and he's just being quiet. And all of a sudden he says, "Son, you see that light over there?" And I look over and see a light off over in the distance. I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Plane." He said, "Uh-uh." I said, "Oh, okay." But light's coming closer and closer and closer. I'm waiting for the sound of a prop or a helicopter or a jet engine. I'm waiting for some sort of sound and say, "No, Elvis, it's a plane." There is no sound. And it's getting closer and closer, and there's a tree line there around the golf course, and it just kind of went and disappeared behind the trees there, and I still am not hearing a sound. He says, "Go in there and get Jerry." So I went in the house and got Jerry, and we come back, Elvis not there. We started calling for him. He's not answering. Jerry said, "Where'd he go?" I said, "I don't know." And I told you, I said, there was a light he wanted you to see that was coming from across the sky that went over in here and everything. I said, "You go up one side of the house and I'll go up the other, and we'll go out and see if he's out front." Went out there, he wasn't out there. Now, folks, I got to tell you, I'm young at that time. I'm about 26 years old. I'm starting to think, what is going on here? Because Elvis had acted weird sometimes, moving, making bushes quiver and move, and clouds form and dissipate, and so we're hollering out there, and all of a sudden I hear this voice, "I'm down here, guys." And we look down, he's about 3 houses down in the driveway. So we hurry down there to him and everything. Said, "What are you doing? What are you doing down here?" He said, "Oh, nothing." He said, "That light, they're gone." I said, "Who's gone?" He said, "They're gone, but they'll be back." I said, "Okay, I'd like to meet him, Elvis." "You will." And he was serious. He said, "You will." We went back up to the house. I talked with Jerry. I said, "Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about." It was like, he said, "Well, son, it was a plane." I said, "Jerry, I got to tell you, there was no sound. There was no engine. There was no noise." And I was in the Air Force. I know what airplanes sound like, and there was no sound. I don't know what it was. Could have been a dead stick plane, engine dead or something, but it came a long way with no engine. But that we didn't talk about it anymore, and he didn't bring it up. I never asked him, did they come back yet over the years? I never asked him that. But that's the way it was. But that's the house where we met the Beatles.
So that's very interesting. So you have different people. You have Geller, and then here now Sonny West, who talk about seeing UFOs with Elvis. And Elvis was very interested in this subject. Interestingly, what I find interesting about this is the fact that this house where this sighting happened in 1966. In 1965, the Beatles were there with John Lennon. And John Lennon, of course, later on, in 1974, which I'll talk about later, had his own encounter while in New York City. But anyway, I just want to throw out this little tidbit here that I find interesting. And I don't know if it just could be coincidence, who knows. But it's interesting, Kurt Russell in 1997 was the pilot who had reported seeing the Phoenix lights. Now, of course, there was over 1,000 people at least that we suspect had seen the gigantic craft that was flying over Phoenix and in the Phoenix area back in 1997. And actually, Kurt Russell was landing his airplane. He was with his son at the time, and they were landing his airplane at the Phoenix airport. And he actually saw the lights. He saw the Phoenix lights. He saw the object and actually reported it. And strangely, after he reported this, Kurt Russell, he forgot about it. And it wasn't until like several years later when Russell's wife, Goldie Hawn, was watching something on TV about the Phoenix Lights, and then she remembered this incident that Kurt had in 1997, and she brought it up to him, and he never made the connection apparently at first, right, that there was something going on back in 1997, and it was just weird. He actually forgot about this UFO incident, and then when his wife reminded him, then it all came back to him. But what's interesting is the fact that, in 1979 there was a TV movie about Elvis's life called Elvis, and Kurt Russell happened to play Elvis in that TV movie. And in fact, I remember watching that TV movie. It was a big event at the time, 1979. Big TV movie. It premiered on ABC. It was a 3-hour movie with commercials. And it was great. I remember watching that movie, and it was fantastic. And Kurt Russell was fantastic as Elvis Presley. But I just find that interesting that, Kurt Russell had a major sighting in 1997 of a UFO, of one of the biggest, most well-known sightings of all time, the Phoenix Lights. And he actually ended up, earlier in his life, in 1979, played Elvis Presley in a biography, television, TV movie biography about the King of Rock and Roll. And here, he has his own sighting all these years later. One of the biggest UFO events of all time. I'll tell you what, folks, something really weird is going on here. Really, really weird. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, we are back, and now I want to talk about John Lennon. Of course, John Lennon was the singer, writer, guitarist, everything. One of the members of the greatest band ever, the Beatles. And he had a UFO sighting in 1974. And here's from an article. There's a lot of different little articles here that you could find online about these events with celebrities. And on August 23rd, 1974, John Lennon had a UFO sighting when he was in New York City. And this is from faroutmagazine.co.uk, and of course I'll leave the link for this one too. And it says here, on the 23rd of August 1974 at 9 o'clock, I saw a UFO, John Lennon wrote in the liner notes for his 1974 album, Walls and Bridges. What's worth pointing out about is in 1974, Lennon was on his lost weekend with Harry Nilsson, which may have made his memory a somewhat hazy one. Speaking to Interview magazine later in 1974, Lennon said he was just dreaming around in my usual poetic frame of mind. He claimed to have witnessed a thing with ordinary electric light bulbs flashing on and off round the bottom, one non-blinking red light on top. The former Beatle said he was around 100 feet away from the bright object hanging over an adjacent building. His then girlfriend, by the way, was with him at the time, May Pang. Now, at this time, John was split up with Yoko Ono. They would later get back together, but at this time he was with his lover, May Pang. And she said, as I walked out onto the terrace, my eye caught this large circular object coming towards us. It was shaped like a flattened cone, and on top was a large, brilliant red light, not pulsating as on any of the aircraft we'd see heading for a landing at Newark Airport. When it came a little closer, we could make out a row or circle of white lights that ran around the entire rim of the craft. These were also flashing on and off. There were so many of these lights that it was dazzling to the mind. So they both saw it. Now some people might say, well, John Lennon was stoned or drunk or whatever. No, but there was somebody else there. They both saw it at the same time. And actually, which another weird thing about this, John Lennon, right before this incident, he drew a UFO, like something, and then later on, something caused him to get out of bed to look outside to see this thing. So that was a very weird thing. And of course, like I stated earlier, there is a connection there with Elvis, because the Beatles did meet with Elvis in 1965 in Beverly Hills and hung out together for a little bit. But that's just celebrities hanging out with celebrities. And here is a little clip of John Lennon talking about his UFO sighting.
Here, up there, I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turn left and then down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near.
And it looked what, sort of round, white,
just
luminescent, and silent?
Silent, and it looked dark, like black or grey in the middle, and had white lights, just looked like light bulbs, you know? Just going off, on, blink, 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 blink.
So there you have it. Now we have John Lennon and Elvis Presley. Both of them had UFO sightings, and it's just weird, isn't it? It's just so many people. It's not just, regular people who are talking about these things. There's so many celebrities, and these are, I'm talking here about three of the biggest celebrities who have ever lived: Elvis Presley, John Lennon, and Muhammad Ali. And of course, what's interesting about all three of these characters is that Elvis Presley and Muhammad Ali became great friends in the 1970s, right up until Elvis died in 1977. From 1973 to 1977, Muhammad Ali and Elvis Presley were great friends. And actually, John Lennon and Muhammad Ali were friends too. Not at first. When the Beatles first came over to America in 1964, 65, I think it was 64 actually, 1964, they met up Muhammad Ali, but they didn't like him. They thought he was a loudmouth. This is before Muhammad Ali became a member of the Islam faith and changed his name. He used to be named Cassius Clay. And Beatles at first didn't like him, but they got along after that. And actually, John Lennon and Muhammad Ali met again over the years. And in fact, in 1977, after the inauguration of Jimmy Carter, Muhammad Ali actually wanted to get the Beatles together for one other tour, one last a big event, just to try to raise money for the homeless. Ali wanted to try to raise $200 million for the homeless, and he saw no better way of trying to do that by getting the Beatles together first for a concert. And he thought maybe they could raise $200 million, but it never happened. But him and John Lennon did talk about it, and unfortunately, it just never came to pass. But Ali had his own experiences. Now here's an article from blazetv.com. It says, sporting legend Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champ, claimed lots of experiences with unidentified flying objects in his life. As you might expect, the boxer wasn't shy about talking about them either. Here's what he said. I happened to look up just before dawn, as I often do while running, and there hovering above us was this brilliant light hanging as if by an invisible thread. At first I thought it was a beacon projected from a helicopter. But moments later, a similar object passed in front of us. I brought it to the attention of my trainer, who was standing nearby. We watched them come from behind the skyline and move slowly across the sky for at least 15 minutes. The best I can describe the sighting is to say they were just round and big. This is no joke. All my friends here saw it. Actually, I've seen them many times before. I've had 16 sightings total to date. Many times in the early morning hours, if you look up in the sky, you can see them playing tag between the stars, really high up. I've had a good number of sightings myself. The closest one happened when a cigar-shaped ship hovered briefly over a car I was a passenger in one night, driving north on the New Jersey Turnpike. What a sight that was. We could see the shadow made by the UFO as it passed over the pavement of the road in the light of the full moon. Before I could blink my eyes, this light had come down toward the mountains until it hovered right above the valley here. I knew I couldn't be dreaming. Sure enough, it was still there. This had to be one of those big ships they talk about. The UFO was streamlined and shaped sort of like a cigar, but blunt on both ends. I couldn't see any windows or anything, but I'm certain there must have been people on board. So there you have Muhammad Ali talking about his experiences. And in September 1973, right before a fight that he was going to have with Ken Norton, Ali had showed up on the Johnny Carson show, the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and this is what he said. Here's a little clip from that. He was talking about UFOs, and of course the crowd there is laughing about it because they thought it was funny. But Ali, as you could listen in this clip, he's very serious about it.
Before the next day, right?
I've been studying.
You seem quite reserved tonight.
I've been studying UFOs. Did you know there are UFOs out here flying around, unidentified?
This would be the place for him, Southern California.
I'm serious. They sighted a bunch over Georgia. I've seen them at night. They have real photos of them, and the government and the people just completely seem like don't talk about it. But Mr. Harold Salkin of Washington, D.C., he's the head of the National UFO Bureau.
Right.
He brought me moving films. I actually have moving pictures of little saucers of gray steel objects coming into pictures that people took, and I'm just surprised that don't nobody talk more about it. Something they can...
Another great insight into the fight game. No, I'm just kidding. No, I read that. But did you read the thing last night on the news?
No.
That some physicists said that what the people of Georgia might have seen were that there are probably several thousand satellite objects going around the United States, around the Earth, and sometimes they disintegrate and they come back into space.
Not 50 feet over the highway.
Well, it could. It's got to land somewhere.
No. They call it swamp gas, and some they don't want. I don't know what it is, but I think I do. But there are actual saucers and objects coming within our atmosphere and flying around, and people got pictures. Everybody cite the same thing in every city: the red and blue and green lights. But the people's authorities completely brush it off, as if to say we are mentally off. But I know it's right because I've been seeing them.
Well, why don't they land then, Muhammad? I mean, if they're intelligent people, why wouldn't they land and step out and say, "Hi there," or "Galman Ding," whatever they say? You know, why wouldn't they make contact?
They probably figure they can't get no sense out of the people here in this place.
We've never talked about that on the show. I didn't know you really believed in
I have actual
UFOs.
photos. I have moving films.
Yeah, but can't they motion picture
This
film,
is
and you're
no
smart
trick.
enough to know that in still pictures they can phony those up.
These are not phony. And the night, the one you can see on Tuesdays and Thursdays is like a big bright star if you go out.
Tuesdays and
It's
Thursdays.
like a big bright star.
Are you sure you're up for this fight?
I'm serious.
If you're thinking about that when Monday night comes, he's going to knock your head off.
No, I'm serious.
You're going to
I'm
say it's
serious.
10 o'clock. You look like he's going to give you such a shot.
No, it's not 10 o'clock. It's 4 and 5 in the morning.
4 and 5 in the morning. Oh.
Seriously, it's like a big bright star, and you see it moving, and it'll go up and disappear and get real small like a pinhead, and then it'll come back, and it'll shake, and then it might go over here, and then go over here. Seriously. I'm serious. I'm not...
Well, I know you're serious in your belief. I don't
This is
happen
not
to
my
believe in it
belief. This
myself.
is anybody who's got eyes' belief.
So there you go, folks. You got 3 major celebrities who had sightings of UFOs: John Lennon, Elvis Presley, and Muhammad Ali. Of course, not all 3 are not with us anymore. But I mean, this is just... You have these. I mean, you had so many different. Not only celebrities. You look at all the people over the years. I talked about Jackie Gleason before, Tom DeLonge. How many people have had encounters with extraterrestrials and/or UFOs? I mean, it's not. It's what's going on here? Something weird's going on, right? I mean, you had Jimmy Carter, the former president, had a sighting, right? He saw something in the '60s. Along with a bunch of other people. Again, all these cases with the 3 guys I was just talking about here. I mean, it wasn't just them seeing it a lot of the times. There were other people that was with them when they saw these things. So it's incredible, but it's real. I mean, and not only that, but there's so many other celebrities, and I'm not even getting into all of them here. But I mean, I was going through different articles here about different people who have seen these things. I mean. Just for instance, one of the people was Kim Wilde. Remember her from the 80s? She was a pop star back in the 80s singing Kids in America. She's someone who says she saw UFOs. There's just so many different celebrities. David Bowie saw UFOs. Olivia Newton-John saw UFOs. They believe in extraterrestrials. They've experienced different things. There's just so many celebrities throughout the decades that have talked about these things. There's just so many people out there. Now, see, sometimes I think that when you're a celebrity, I guess it doesn't really matter. You're not as afraid to talk about it publicly. Obviously, Ali, he was outspoken about it. Now, I don't remember Elvis Presley really talking too much about it. You don't really see a lot of interviews with him talking about it publicly. He might have been concerned with the stigma, perhaps, but he talked about it amongst his friends, the guys who were working with him. John Lennon talked about it publicly. He had no problem making a statement. See, when you're in a celebrity, you have nothing to lose, right? So you have to wonder how many other people out there, right, who aren't celebrities, right, have sightings or experiences and just don't say anything to anybody because they're concerned about the stigma associated with seeing a UFO or encountering an extraterrestrial. I'm sure Elvis didn't want to bring that up to the public. Hey, yeah, I saw an extraterrestrial. You know, I'm sure you can understand why. But at the same time, he did talk about it with his friends. He didn't have a problem there at all. But I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing, and it's funny. I just think it's funny, like how those three people that I'm talking about. You know, Muhammad Ali became great friends with Elvis Presley. They both bought each other gifts. They you know, actually, you know, of course, Ali used to fancy himself as the greatest of all time, but he would always tell Elvis, you know, no, you're the greatest, you know, because he thought he loved Elvis Presley. And of course, all these guys, all these people, all these celebrities, they knew each other. They met each other at some point. They all had UFO experiences. And I thought it's also interesting the fact that Kurt Russell, you know, played Elvis Presley in 1979, and then in 1997 had his own UFO encounter. Reported the Phoenix Lights. He was the pilot. That there was discussion after the 1997 incident that there was a pilot who had called in the UFO, and nobody knew it at the time, not until some years later, that it was actually actor Kurt Russell, which is interesting. One more thing about Ali is actually I got a chance to see Ali back in, it was either 1975 or 1976, I'm not really sure. I was a kid. I went on a field trip with a bunch of other kids during the summertime, and Ali actually had a training camp in this very near to where I live, where I grew up, and where I live right now. The training camp was in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania, and we went there. We saw him sparring, and I remember waiting to get his autograph when it was all over, and he didn't want to sign any autographs that day, but Flip Wilson happened to be there. I don't know if anybody remembers Flip Wilson, the comedian Flip Wilson was there, and he signed autographs that day, and so I got to see Flip Wilson. I remember I was the last kid to go up to him. I remember we were outside, and he was sitting on a stump that was outside of the training facility, and he was sitting there signing autographs, and we were standing in line, and he signed autographs. But it was great. I got to see Ali once in my life during a sparring session, and I got Flip Wilson's autograph. Anyway, until next time.